How's it going, everybody? This is Pristine Paper back again for another video, and today I'm going to be delving into why I collect patch and relic cards. And I kind of had a script that I was going to be writing up, like compared to some of my other videos where I usually do so, but due to the story and the topic, I kind of just thought it'd be better if I just kind of spoke from the heart. So, to kind of get into it, relic and patch cards are some of the most polarizing cards in the hobby. As most people know, through my experience as a collector, I personally love them. Nowadays with all the drama surrounding game worn and player worn and non-associated relics, I can understand like a newer collector being cautious about patches and relics, but when I got into it back in like 2007, 2008, the prime era of game worn relics, in my opinion, I was really hooked on the concept. I was a kid who was really interested in history and sports, and kind of just like the idea of collecting sports history, I guess you could say. So I was considering the idea of having a game worn piece of a jersey in the card of that player on the card. I thought that was like there's no better way to collect, and I didn't have any money at this point. I was 11 years old or so. And this is kind of where the biggest card influence comes into the picture here, which is my grandfather, my dad's dad. Luckily I still have my mother's father around as well, but he was not really a sports fan, not a collection guy really. He's a golf guy, but that's kind of where it ends. So my dad's father really kind of fostered this whole idea of collecting, and also the idea of recognizing history. So that's kind of where the story starts. So I kind of want to get into that a little bit. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, so that's kind of why I wanted to speak a little bit more just from the heart and not from a formulated script. So I mean, to edit things out here and there just because of lulls and with the discussion, then I will. But I kind of want to get into it. So my dad's father was born and raised in Maine, from what I remember, and came to Massachusetts, I think when he was like a teenager, which is when he met my grandmother, who's still around with us. She's told me some of the backstory now that he's passed, and he passed in 2009, so it's been quite a while. And I've grown up. He passed when I was about 12 years old, so or I was about to turn 12. I think I was about 11. So it's been quite a while. I'm now 27 years old. So it was kind of early on in my life, and he passed away from cancer. And at that time, me and my sister were really young and kind of shielded from it. So I didn't really see a lot of the things going on, and didn't really hit me as much as I think it would normally had as like a more of a teenager or a adult. But anyway, the reason why I'm kind of discussing this is because I'm kind of reflecting back on my memories with him through this collecting of patch cards or relic cards. And as you can see in front of you, there are two cards. There's a Jim Rice and a Carl Yastrzemski, and these are my first relic cards I've ever got. And he purchased them for me from the LCS that I still go to this day. It's in a different location. It's actually like across the street from where their old location was, where we bought these cards, but still the same owners and everything. So it's really interesting. I really find that a cool piece of my collecting journey today. But to get a little bit more into his history, he himself was a big collector. When I was growing up, he was really into coins and coin collecting and collecting currency. So me and my sister and my cousin, we would go over to visit him and my grandmother. He would always show us some cool coins, and we were really interested. I mean, the way he would tell stories about them and explain them were really captivating, and we were really just interested in it because they were from like different countries and different time periods and things like that. So we just thought they were kind of cool, relics, for lack of a better word. Anyway, so he would even give us coins to bring home, and we'd have coin collections for ourselves. Fully funded from him. I never really understood how he got them or where he got them from, and to this day I still don't really know, but I think that's part of the illusion. I just kind of, every time I went over, he had more coins and things he would give us. And now I'm thinking about it, there was a time where he gave us currency from Iraq, and it had Saddam Hussein on the bill. And we were like, 8 years old, 9 years old. My dad, pulled him aside. He's like, Dad, like, you can't give him, money with Saddam Hussein on it. It's kind of, not in good taste at this current moment. And my grandfather said, oh, well, it's history. It's current history. So, that's kind of funny, and how where I even think back to how I react to things today. I see a lot of myself in him. So, kind of going off from the coins, he wasn't really a big sports fan per se, but he was a big, I think he was a pretty big Red Sox fan back in like the 60s and 70s. Not as much, when he was getting older in age, but as you can see from the players, the Jim Rice and Carl Yastrzemski, I'm pretty sure Carl Yastrzemski was one of his favorite players. So I remember he brought me to the LCS, and I think we bought these cards at different points. We didn't buy these cards at the same time, but he got me, I believe it was the Jim Rice first, because the Jim Rice was one of my parents' favorite players when they were growing up as well, both my mom and my dad. Get the focus here. So I kind of like Jim Rice just because of that. And this is 2007 Upper Deck SP, when it was a game of Jim Rice, game worn piece of jersey. Pretty cool. You can look at the back and the wording. But I really like this card design, and it's kind of interesting, like how small the picture is of the player itself, and the design is what's taking up most of the card. And look at the window; it's kind of pretty small there too. But this was like the first Relic card I had ever gotten, and I'm just propping them up on the top loaders here. And so yeah, that's the first one, and I remember like I'm like, wow, this is an actual game worn piece of Jim Rice's jersey, like back from like the 70s. Like I remember driving home and looking at the card over and over again, like really just like contemplating it and thinking about like, wow, this is pretty crazy. And then like a few days or a few weeks or months later, I can't remember exactly, went back and he purchased this card for me as well. This is a 2006 Upper Deck Epic Materials purple to 155 of Carl Yastrzemski, and I thought that was really cool as well. I thought this this patch piece or relic piece was bigger, and looking at the back of the wording here, this is like the perfect wording. On the front of this card is an authentic piece of jersey worn by Carl Yastrzemski in an official Red Sox Major League Baseball game. So that's why Upper Deck always did it best, in my opinion. They had the best wording, and they had some of the best foil and best designs and all that. But yeah, I remember same deal, driving home with this card and being like, oh my god, this is a piece of Carl Yastrzemski's jersey. And like, it's like, I always thought like, these are things that should be in a museum. Like I thought like, they're legendary players, they're in the Hall of Fame, they've won, I wouldn't say they didn't win rings, but they've won lots of fans' hearts, let's say that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But anyway, that's kind of where this all came from. Like, was from these two cards right here, and his influence in fostering that. And like I said, he passed in 2009, so kind of right after we kind of bought these cards. And after that, the seed obviously kind of grew, and I went to a card show with my other grandparents, my Nana, who I've discussed on the channel before, another big influence. Both my grandmother on my mother's side and my grandfather on my dad's side were big influences. And even to this day, my grandmother is, and I'm so grateful for them and kind of how they introduced this love of sport and sports history to me. And it's been a big passion of mine, of course, the last few years, and giving me a lot of ways to put energy into something that is beneficial in what I think is good for me, and in times that may be tough. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling on here. I just kind of wanted to explain that story, and because obviously people aren't really trusting of relic and patch cards nowadays, and this is where my love of it comes from, and why I still heavily collect patch cards, as you can see from my postings. So without further ado, I'm just gonna peace out here and say bye. See you later, guys.